Cloaked in the shadows.
Okay, Amanda.
Okay, this is Cloaked in the Shadows.
People who don't know, what is Cloaked in the Shadows?
It's a weird and wonderful podcast.
Yes, now, it can make sense because I'm thinking of a weird and wonderful guest of us. But seriously, she's got a wonderful guest of today. The top end of Scotland. And I've known this young lady here now, 18 months or so now. First met her through wonderful Finn Hall over the plot from the blue after he recommended this young lady to come on Spoken Label. And I had that much great time with her. So the disorganised guest I've ever had, but absolutely lovely with it as well. And we wanted to get her on to go to the channel since we started at the beginning of the year. But there's been things going on both sides. We've got fantastic, wonderful Kelly Buchan with us today. Now, people might know Kelly obviously from poetry. We'll talk to her about the other side of her creativity today, aren't we, Kelly? So tell us, first of all, Kelly, a little bit about yourself as a person and where you, particularly astrology and your tarot, where it came from. We'll start with that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've been so excited about this. But my name's Kelly Buchan. I'm a writer and a tarot reader and Vedic astrologer. I live up in the northeast of Scotland. I've had my business going for about 3 years now, but I was lucky enough to be born into, a bit of a spooky family. My mum's a tarot reader, and my great-great-grandmother was a witch. She was known as the witchy wifey back in the day in a fishing village in the turn of the 1900s. And so there's gifts been passed down on the side of my mother's side. Some of us in the family have nicer gifts than others, I'll put it that way, but everybody has sort of seemed to be a bit of a mystic. So obviously there's two types of divination that you can dive into. There's mystical divination and grammatical divination, where we're speaking about the structure of these things. And in mystical divination, you're very much relying on your intuition and calming the mind and allowing information to come in. But I specialise in grammatical divination, so that's tarot and astrology. And what that means is that you're developing your own sort of language to converse with the greater consciousness that is the universe. And I do that through a whole host of things, but primarily it's a combination of tarot and astrology. So I like to read the energy of a birth chart first, and then overlay that with a tarot reading afterwards so that we can build up layers of energy. And that's pretty much what I offer as a service.
Brilliant. Now, when we talked to Spoken Label last year, I do remember you telling me this as well. What you do with your readings, you don't go for the Western practice of it at all. You go for the Indian side of it. I full well remember you telling me you had your chart, didn't you? You'd done in the Western style. You were massively disappointed about it at the time. So yeah. I think we need to explain to people, obviously, about the differences between the Indian side and the Western side that you do. Especially you rather than me.
No worries. So obviously I was an occultist first and foremost. So I practiced something called ceremonial magic, which is like Hermeticism and Kabbalah, kind of a mixture. And it's an occult science. So when I was reading all the occult literature that you do as a beginner, it was always mentioning using planetary magic and symbolism through the sidereal placements. And I'd never really studied astrology, so I never really knew what that meant. And then, as you said, I got my Western birth chart done. I was so underwhelmed. I just found it very shallow. And so eventually I met a sidereal or Vedic astrologer. You don't have to be a Vedic astrologer to be a sidereal astrologer, because the Vedas, it's all about the wisdom transmuted from the Vedas, and that kind of practices from India. But on the Western astrological practices, they use the axes of the sun being tied to the equinox. But what's happened is they haven't taken into account that over the last few thousand years, the backdrop of stars has dropped by 1 degree every 72 years. So the placements that are used in Western astrology are inherently incorrect. And I think that's why when I dive into a sidereal birth chart, it can be quite striking as to how accurate it is in regards to important things happening within a person's timeline.
Brilliant. Now, Amanda, is there anything you want to ask Kelly before we go on to what we're going to talk about the main topic of the conversation today?
No.
She's useless. Absolutely. It's not the hostess of the most. The useless hostess. Right. So. Now, obviously, Kelly, what we're going to talk about today, so people know, is you've done a reading for Amanda recently. And I want to talk, we two are going to talk about that some depth. One big information we touch on today, before we do that, is about your you've been doing some writing for article show, which magazine? I forgot the name of it as well.
I have.
You should mention that as well before we go any further.
Yeah, I haven't written for Witch magazine in quite a while, just with the amount that's been going on in my personal life over the last year. But I am planning. I've been doing like tarot deck reviews and things like that. So, as you both know, there's like a crazy amount of tarot decks on the market available to buy, and I've been reviewing tarot decks in accordance to how well suited they are to occult and magical practices. So yeah.
I would like to hear a bit more about that. Are you okay with that, Monday?
Yeah.
Can you give us a couple of non-specific spoilers in about how you found some of these?
About how I found some of the tarot decks?
Yeah, you've been doing reviews on them, haven't you? So, like, it's obviously they're all different the way they operate. I know you do the angel card, didn't you? Or did you anyway, so.
I used to practice with the angel decks, but not so much anymore. I'm actually going to be releasing my own oracle deck.
Oh.
So I've got an oracle deck coming out at the end of the year called The Words Unspoken, and it's going to be like
that's very you. That's
yeah, and it's going to be for tarot readers to use when they're doing breakup specific readings, because I find that 90% of the readers or the clients that I get are coming asking for advice during breakups or looking for closure. So I've done like a tailor-made oracle deck for that purpose. So but it's mostly the only other oracle decks I tend to use are the Astrocodes Oracle deck, and they're sort of like imagery and symbolism from astrology and all the zodiacal correspondences and things like that. And I found that really helpful coming off the back of an astrology reading going into a tarot reading. So yeah.
Okay. Now, it's over to you two ladies now, because I'm not privy to this reading. I try to keep away from it. So, now, obviously, like before, people would have like that. Kelly's just done a reading for Amanda. So, Amanda.
Yeah, I was really impressed with it. It's like, I believe in that sort of thing anyway, but I'm always looking for like the other explanation, and like thinking this person could have done that. And with what you said, I was just thinking there's no way she could have known any of this.
That's a huge, that's lovely to hear. It really, really is. It's so nice to hear. And like how it's this astrology one specifically, like what did you think of that?
Yeah, I can't remember which one it was now, but there was one thing that stood out when you was talking about like identity and stuff.
Yeah.
Because that was like the thing that I've not spoken out loud, not even like to Andy. So it's like with like my work drying up and things, I was just sort of feeling a bit like I don't know who I am now. It's like if I've sort of tied myself so closely to it, I don't actually know what I'm supposed to do now. So that just sort of stood out to me, and I thought there's no way she could have known that. It's like it wasn't on Facebook. I've not said it to anybody.
Yeah, and we've never actually spoken as well. It's always been Andy that I've been speaking to. So that's
all me the most used to that.
But I'm really glad. Did you find it? Did it bring you a bit of hope and a bit of comfort, kind of thing?
Yeah, and it just made a lot of sense as well.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. And do you know what I was really, really eager to speak to you about is your moon placement, because you and I share the same moon placement. So it's something called Akena Daruma Yoga in Vedic astrology, where the moon isn't supported by any other planet. And although, like, as children, we can feel quite isolated, as though our minds are kind of adrift and nothing kind of holding us up, it serves us really well later on in life. Did that apply to you? Did that resonate?
Yeah, because I think I was in my mid-30s when I actually went back to school, to Open University, because I left school without any qualifications.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until like my mid-30s I actually started getting somewhere with my life.
Yeah.
Before that, I'd been in a controlling relationship and then just had like various other bad experiences as well before that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing because in Vedic astrology, we're meant to run in 4 30-year cycles, right? So obviously in the West, we don't live that long over here because our culture is so crazy. But, the first 30, some, the hardcore astrologers, if you go over to India, they won't even read a person's birth chart if they're not 30 yet. Because, like, the first 30 years of life, Saturn is shaping us into who we're meant to be for the next 30-year cycle. So it's almost like we're baby birds for the first 30 years. And, especially, like, it's difficult to see when you've got such harsh astrological configurations. Like you and I share that, the kind of through my yoga. And as children, there's no way of verbalizing how isolating that can feel, to just feel really like an island with your thoughts and no one to kind of help guide you. But I'm glad that resonated, because that was the first thing that jumped out in your chart for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool. I remember the first time I did Andy's reading, I sent him the same. It was like 25 minutes worth of voice notes. It was like, this is too much.
I remember that. All I saw was it. And I was like, I got up one morning, you've done it in the middle of the night, you're reading. I went myself. And I'm not going to swear this podcast, but it was like, beep. And I thought, oh my good grief, it's for 25 minutes. Then it came through, I got about 4 files off you, and I thought, you must have been up all night doing that for.
That reminds me of we went to a psychic reading once, and a friend of his, I'm not going to name on the podcast, had a love reading, and I think she was still there after an hour. We were just like, I was like, oh, she's going to be busy then.
It's a shame, because it's always the love readings. Like, as I say, 90% of the readings and bookings I get in are just people wanting a bit of comfort and a bit of closure so that they can move on, you know. So it's sad in that way, but that's kind of what triggered me to make my own oracle deck, because honestly, see the pile of cards that I can't use because they serve no purpose, but I was buying them thinking this might be the deck that I need, but I couldn't find one, so it was like, right, I need to make my own, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to. It's really interesting you mentioned one with the oracle deck itself. It's like, is it? I don't want to give too much away on that, but has it took you a lot of work to get this oracle deck to where you want it, or did it come together very quickly?
Like everything else that comes when you're a creative person, you just get a stroke of lightning, and I always get this. It was the same, you know. It was the same when I thought about releasing my book. It was like, right, bam, this is something that I need to do, and I'm so, in Scotland we would say thrawn, but I suppose it's like stubborn would be the correct English word, that I know that this is something that I need to do. So I'm working with an artist that I've known for a while now. He's creating the deck imagery. I'll send it to you after this podcast so you can have a look at the back of the image, because I've actually, like, for a love deck, it doesn't really fit, but I've set the entire image out to have all of the symbolism that a witch needs on her altar. So we've got a lot of the astrological correspondences. I've got the symbolism for the divine masculine and feminine, and it's set up so that everyone who is using it has direct access to all of the sort of magical correspondences that you need for a proper magical altar. So yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. Love to see the imagery of that. So you've been saying on that. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating, man. I remember last week I booked in a red reading with some man who was on about it. Both came out there with completely new feelings. But seeing the man's face when you sent that reading on through the other day, and like I've only heard a bit of it. I've been pretty too busy this week. But like it was like it felt like you gained some acceptance of it. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, because sometimes it's just like, even though it doesn't specifically do anything to help, it's just like hearing it. It's like, yeah, I agree with that. And it just sort of helps, even though it's not really done anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you've talked to you, Kelly, about spoken language last year. I know you do some readings in person, but it's like, do you find maybe like Amanda's case, you don't know them, you've not even spoke to them anyway, you send it across to my WhatsApp, right? Is it a bit of an unusual, it's a different sort of experience, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and do you know what? It's funny. I don't do readings in person at all at the moment, because this is a bit of a tangent, if you don't mind. But so when I was in the car accident, I cracked 3 bones at the bottom of my spine, and so I really missed working. Like, I was in a lot of pain, but I really wanted to get back to work. I had a long list of people who were waiting to be seen, and I started having people into my house, but because the spine is like your radio receiver, you know, the spine is where the Kundalini fluid moves up and down. It's your radio antenna for the matrix, right? But because that was cracked, I was having people coming into my house, and instead of being able to read the energy, I was literally picking up on everything that they were feeling. And, you know, people can be quite daunted coming into a tarot reader, like a reader. And one of the biggest comments I get is, you're really young. Like, you're really young to be doing this sort of work. So people are a bit taken aback and really anxious. So I was having people sit next to me, and I was having full-blown panic attacks, trying to give them their reading. And I managed to do about 2 months worth. And it was the same month that I was releasing my book, and I had a nervous breakdown, and I kept it to myself how I was feeling. And I contacted an astrologer in India that I know, and I like regurgitated it all out, what was going on. And he says, your spine was broken. He was like, you're picking up extra energy. It's like you're being overloaded. So since September, October-ish last year, all of my readings have been through WhatsApp. And I almost prefer not knowing the person because, you know, I'm from a small town, I'm from a small fishing village, and I sometimes worry that people are like, she's on Facebook or Instagram trying to dig up information. And so at the moment, people are booking in with me through TikTok, because I do zodiacal readings on TikTok, and my TikTok's exploded. I just get their phone number, their date of birth, generate their chart, and read it blind. So I'm not worried about, like, not offending people in that sense, but I'm not worried about having a filter or a buffer. I'm just sort of regurgitating everything that I'm seeing out, and I find it a lot easier. I know it should be the other way around where I'm reading body language and stuff, but I find this method a lot easier.
I think so, yeah, because
sorry, that was a long story.
I've heard a story about Kelly where I didn't want to see a fortune telling when I was 11, it was Blackpool. And this predated Amanda when I was with the ex. I know, I'm curious of your opinion on this sort of stuff is, where this fortune teller said to me, would you like to know the initials of the woman you're going to marry? And he gave Amanda's initials out, not their partners. And I had to go out of that tent and tell my ex now, saying, oh yeah, she gave your initials out, yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it? That's really, really cool. See, I can't do, it's not like, that's mystical divination instead of grammatical divination. See, sometimes I get sort of weird flashes and stuff when I'm doing readings, but I mostly use like symbolic language and stuff to get that kind of information. It's weird.
I'll get you converted. Now, you've had other readings, haven't you?
Just the one in Livingston. But I've done some readings as well, myself. But like I had the same problem like you were mentioning, like if you know people, you sort of filter it. Like there was a couple of like really sensitive questions I got, and the answers weren't what the person was looking for. So I was like, oh, how do I tell them this? It's like I don't want to tell them this.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Then, isn't it? Like you know the person, you feel reluctant almost to tell them difficult things, I suppose, don't you? So it's yeah. Some of my friends, like refuse to get card readings done by me. It's just like I'd rather not know. And I've got other friends that every couple of days are like, go and pull me some cards, like. But it's a strange one, like. I have had readings in the past where some awful things have shown themselves, and I've just ended up having to sort of, knowing that they're recording me, word it in a way where I'm telling them and I'm not telling them. Just sort of like easy, gently. But yeah, it's a difficult thing to sort of tread. And I think that's why I find it so easy to just not know them at all, generate their chart, because inherently a birth chart is the person. It's the person in energetic form. So you're reading time, you're reading someone's timeline. So I find that a lot easier to just be completely separated from it and then deliver it like that. But the reviews I've got are amazing. Like, I'm really blessed. I really am. Is there a ghost you want to ask, guys?
Yeah, there was a little bit where you asked about did I see ghosts as a child?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't so much seeing ghosts, but there was a lot of strange things that happened to me in the house that I grew up in. And there was one thing that just like I got this like sense from, like I used to avoid it, and I used to feel like there was something in there watching me.
Oh, I've heard this story.
And I also had an experience once where I woke up in the middle of the night. I must have been about 8 or 9 years old, and I felt like there was something there. And it was like it scared me so much. I got up and spent the rest of the night sat outside my parents' bedroom. Because I was too old to go in and say, oh, I'm scared in my bedroom, there's something in there. But I didn't want to actually be in the bedroom.
Yeah, well, as I said, you're Libra rising, so you have that gift to feel. It's like, it's not necessarily seeing, like Claire said, you're actually feeling the shift in the energy. And your 8th house, which is the house of the occult, is in an earth sign. So that to me is, as I was saying in your reading, my 8th house of the occult is in a fire sign, so it's all directed towards my career, But because yours is an earth sign, it's seeing tangible things, feeling them within the physical realm. And one of the biggest secrets of the zodiac wheel is that all the, it's like the snake eating itself. It's a spiraling staircase. So the seventh house leads into the eighth house. So, and your moon is in the seventh house. So the moon is a mirror, and it's almost like being able to feel the emotions of the spirit world as well. Like if you walked into a house where a lot of terrible things happened, you would be able to feel that because your mind is connected to it as well. It's amazing what you can see in a birth chart. It really, really is. It's cool.
Sorry to interrupt Amanda, Kelly. She does this. Tell her Kelly got to me start shaking, don't you? Like I put me on the door like
and I'd be like shiver for no reason. My dad used to call it somebody's watered on your grave.
Yeah.
Last.
Again.
That's what he's doing. And that is everything he said to her, he's put last at the end of it. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the one I always see her do that. And, what's your views, interesting, Kelly, on the slightly different topic of reincarnation then? Do you actually believe in reincarnation?
100%, yeah. Yeah, so a lot of the Vedic astrology stuff is tied into Hindu principles, reincarnation, but as far as I can tell, this... and you know something, like when I had that near-death experience, it kind of threw me into a crazy hole in my head where a lot of the, drugs are bad, kids, but I've taken quite a lot of psychedelics in my time, especially when I was younger, and it kind of opens your mind into the possibility of like different dimensions, different realms. And if you really, really think about the philosophy of death, like how could this consciousness that we're experiencing just switch off? And in high magic and things like that, I mean, a lot of people say to me, like, who are you talking to when you're connecting to the divine? Well, you're connecting to the greater consciousness, because all we are droplets of that consciousness condensed down into physical form. Like the only thing that's separating my consciousness as yours is the material world that we are in. So all of this sort of love and light quotes that you get nowadays, they really are true. Like we are all one, but not in the way that people think. Everybody's like, oh, we're all connected. It's like, no, we're all the same thing. Like you and I looking at each other now, we're just looking at two facets of the same diamond. So, there's all these philosophical trains of thought, like solipsism, where it's like there's only one consciousness that's experiencing all these life at once. And I don't know. And do you know what? My opinions change a lot, especially as I progress through my own spiritual journey. But there's nothing surer that we do come back and that we have to experience the karmic wheel. There's no escaping it. And that's, I've done this as a job long enough to know that karma is a bitch, excuse my French.
Yeah.
And it really is something that works. And we see it especially through astrological transits known as Sarasati, where the planet Saturn is judging us at all times. Like whether we like it or not, the consciousness of the universe is staring back at us at all times. We are observed at all times. That's how karma works. And people who are untrustworthy or who don't care about hurting other people, their heavier astrological transits can sometimes kill them. So it really is the planet Saturn measuring the weight of your soul against a feather. And yeah, I believe it so strongly that it is something that happens. We come back. I don't believe that we come back in a linear timeline. I strongly believe that I could die just now and come back as a Chinese girl from the 1800s or be moved 4,000 years onward,
Yes. Amanda's been told that theory. Who told you that theory?
It was a guy on a podcast when I was a guest. And
yeah,
that's the first I'd heard of it, but it kind of makes sense because it's like when you get a sense that something's going to happen, that could explain like psychic premonitions and stuff if you've done it in the past and it's all out of order.
Yeah.
I've definitely lived a couple of lives before that, and you know one, don't you? Specifically, when Amanda was a German lady, she came to live in England after the Second World War, so
yeah.
you do get quite specific things sometimes, yeah, and it's very, very fascinating stuff indeed. Now, I've got a lot else for that, and as you say, Claire, is there anything you like?
No.
So what we'll do is, last thing I want to bring up, Claire, so we need to talk about your poetry book anyway. It's not there, because I first know your poetry. So people who don't know, tell us about the book, first of all, then.
My book is called The Inner Shore. here it is here, and it's something that I'm so proud of. And do you know what? Like the guy who did the image is amazing. Like, so that's my eye, and it's me in the middle, and it's sort of it's just an expression of, you know, because I got divorced in 2020. And that was the year of my Saturn return. So that was the year my first 30-year cycle ended. And I really, really felt that so deeply. And I wanted to make sure that the poetry that I was writing, there was none of that in it. Like, it was very much a clean slate. So this poetry book is pretty much all of the experiences I've had since 2020. And there's been a lot going on, but I'm so proud of it. And if it hadn't been for because I know like 18 months ago, I was kind of loosely speaking about putting one together, but when I was bedbound, when I broke those bones in my back, that was when I was like, right, if I don't do something productive, I'm not going to get out of this bed. So that was the time I used to collate all my writing and get serious about releasing a book. And I did it in November. So yeah, I'm really proud of it.
So proud of you. So the PDF over was all spoken label last year, and I absolutely loved it, to be honest with you. It was when I read it, it is your voice, Kelly, throughout the book. I'm not showing you, yes, Amanda. We'll be trading copies on Amanda.
Definitely.
Do you envisage your mind another book someday?
Yeah. You know, I've got some kids' books that I've sort of written the outlines and skeletons of, and I've got an astrology book to learn children how to learn astrology and stuff, because that's something that's really sort of looked past. But like, I teach my children all about reincarnation, and if my daughter's having a really paddy day, I'll have a look at her chart and I'm like, look, the moon is crossing over where your Mars is, and you know, all that kind of stuff.
I wasn't going to ask you about
really
children off this podcast, but yeah, how are your children? How are your two children, or your stepdaughters? How do they feel that like you and mum, like the way you are like that? Are the three of them interested in this sort of field as well?
Yeah, like my daughter just thinks it's awesome that I've got almost 20,000 followers on TikTok. She's just like, my mom's a TikTok star. That's all she cares about. She doesn't care about the rest of the stuff.
I'll 8-year-olds.
Yeah. But it's funny because in my daughter's chart, she's also moon in Aries like Amanda, but her Aries is her 8th house. So she's going to be more like my mum in the mystical side, and I can feel it off her. She like, there's just little things that she says and stuff that I'm like, she's feeling things, you know? But my son's chart is on the direct axis to mine. And it's my Saturn placement as to why I'm an astrologer, and his is on the exact degree. So his Saturn is in the exact same house and the exact same degree as mine. So I'm quite convinced. And I'll tell you a wee story about the day that I had my car accident with my son. So luckily the kids weren't in the car. I was dropping off my best friend in town and then taking her home, and everybody was chilling here at my house. And the accident happened, and my cousin drove over the road and obviously pulled over and phoned my parents. So Buzz, my son, was sitting on my dad's knee, and my mum answered the phone, and my son sat up and looked at my dad and said, "Mum's got a really sore head." And my dad was like, "What?" And he says, "Mum's dizzy, mum's dizzy." And he like curled in a ball and was crying, saying, "Mum's not well, mum's not well." And my dad, because it's my mum's side of the family that are spooky, my dad was like, "Oh my goodness, this is spooky." But yeah, and then he kind of just went and curled up in my bed and fell asleep. And my mum said he was just gone. So I'm quite sure that my son is very much dialed in. But I think, like, to be honest, my daughter's got more of the vibe of like a healer, you know, like Reiki or things like that. That's the kind of energy I'm getting off of her.
Yeah, I'd have been surprised if your two children didn't have that sort of, there's something about them straight away with a mother like yourself, definitely. So,
yeah.
Unless Amanda's got anything else to ask, I think that's it for us, otherwise, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kelly, can I have a couple of things with you, obviously. If you want to get hold of your book, first of all, where do you recommend it on?
Amazon, so it's available on Amazon. The link is, if you go to my TikTok, my Instagram, or my Facebook, it's _witchcrafter, and the link to my book is tagged at the top of all my social media profiles.
Brilliant. Now, just to clarify again, then, so we talk about TikTok. What's your handle for TikTok now again? So just people know.
It's the same. It's the _witchcrafter.
Witchcrafter, that's fine. That way then, because obviously we talk about TikTok for the hip kids. So we have to keep plugging it. So yeah, brilliant. It's been a pleasure, Kelly, today. So we'll look to have you and spoke later when book 2's out. I know Amanda wants you on here again. I know she is, right?
Oh, definitely. Anytime, guys. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Hang around, Kelly. If you need to talk to anybody, Amanda.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you, Kelly. This is Cloaked in the Shadows. Where's it going on?
Cloaking into the shadows.
See you all.
Cloaked in the shadows.